interested in knowing all about Soldierfit. How did you even come up with this concept?
Great question. So I've been in the fitness industry my whole life, and I met my business partner who was 9 years in the Army. And, I saw a lot of the things in the fitness industry that were doing really, really well. And I saw a lot of the things that I wanted changed. And one was community. I worked at a big box gym. Although there can be community in a lot of them, most of the time it's just not their focus. People come in, they plug in their headphones, and they kind of get off to their workout. So we wanted to revolve something around teamwork and camaraderie, combine it with his military experience. And there really wasn't anything on the market at the time like what we did. There was a lot of boot camps, but they were like Dynamic Fitness Boot Camp, Johnny's Boot Camp, Bobby's Boot Camp, nothing that really emphasized and brought in the military culture. So we were just sitting in the office one day, kind of talking. CrossFit was popular at the time, and we were coming up with names. And I think I just said, fit something, fit, Soldierfit. And then both of our eyes lit up, and boom, I went on the USPTO, trademarked the name, and then it was off and running from there. And for a while, it was really just him doing personal training clients. We didn't really embrace Soldierfit as it is today. We went and we were working out of gyms. We worked on a dirt field outside of a gym, and we were doing boot camps in the 100-degree weather, wintertime, 28 degrees. And so although there's some hard chargers that want to work out during those conditions, it really wasn't something that stuck. So it was really seasonal. And then we had an opportunity to go into a martial arts academy where we had our own sublease space. We set up a class at 8:30 p.m. Set up a class expecting 5 people to show up, maybe if we were lucky. And there were 35 people knocking at the door to get in.
How did you find the 35 people?
Through social media, just kind of us talking about it, friends. I mean, geez, we were at a point, Frank, where we were literally operating out of gyms and giving people free t-shirts, begging them to just wear it because it had our name on them.
Right.
One of those was obviously to get the brand out, made us look a lot bigger than we were at the time. We had, 50 people walking around wearing our t-shirt. People were like, geez, what's this Soldierfit program? Like, they seem to be blowing up. They're everywhere. But anyway, we set up a class for 5. We had 35 people, and we just said, look, I think we have something here. I think the magic's in the air. And then it's been kind of full-fledged from there. And as far as kind of my story, again, I grew up playing sports, so fitness has always been something that I've been passionate about. I played football on the collegiate level. Once I graduated college, I went into the workforce, right? I kind of followed that middle class rat race guide. Where you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job wearing a suit and tie. And so I started doing interviews for office jobs, selling copiers, things like that. And I slowly realized, like, look, this is just not the atmosphere that I want to be in. And there's nothing wrong with that atmosphere. It just wasn't for me. I needed to kind of get out and expand. So I got a job selling gym memberships, collecting $7 an hour, making commission. I got promoted to general manager. So I got to see things from a management perspective. I think I was like 23 leading, 50-person staff running a location. Then from there was a position that opened up called area director. So now I kind of got to oversee multiple locations in a big box gym. So I did that, and I got to see kind of business side of the house, the ins and outs, the 30,000-foot view. And then that company was actually acquired shortly after by Gold's Gym. It was like a $32 million acquisition. It kind of brought me at the point where, what do I need to do at this point? I can continue working into the corporate world. And we were still doing Soldierfit on the side. I just hadn't gone all in.
Oh, okay.
And my business partner, came to my door and he said, look, in order for us to take this to the next level, like, I need you all in. Like, I can't do this with you part-time, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And it was actually perfect timing. I just bought my first house. So I have this massive mortgage, and I'm like, well, the logical thing to do would be to quit my 6-figure job and dive into, owning my own business that would pay me maybe a $30,000 salary. Like,
right.
It seems like the smart thing to do. He gave me a hell of a sales pitch.
Did he?
Came in guns blazing. I was fired up. I left the meeting. It's like, let's go. And then I was all in, quit my job, dove in, full go. And then we started building this thing even more. I mean, we have an incredible team. There's only so much that I can do, that he can do, like, without our team just being all in. Our member base, our franchisees, their member base, loyal, diehard soldier fitters. So it makes my job a lot easier, and it made our growth a lot easier, because it wasn't just us preaching, come sign up or come join the brand. We had ambassadors as members kind of preaching it all over the place.
Right. Okay. So I love just the grit and the genesis of the story where you're starting outdoors and then going to subleasing, at the martial arts place, and then obviously giving up everything to go all in. But when you go all in, do you guys open a facility then on your own, or are you still subleasing? Kind of walk me through that.
So we had two sublease spaces, one out of a martial arts academy and one out of a sports complex. And so when I went all in, those were kind of the two sources of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
We built it up. I mean, the business was doing well. There was just some fine tuning that needed to happen. Another person to really focus on kind of the backside of the business.
So what do you mean what was going well? Like revenues were going well, but we needed to have the infrastructure and
revenue was doing well,
okay.
Right? Not nearly what it was capable of. The bottom line and profit was pretty much non-existent. There was no structure in terms of like keeping track of, expenses and things like that. We're a young business, and we were really young at the time, and
we're working out of the checkbook, basically.
Yeah, you understand how that works, right?
I totally understand how that works.
And so, we put in more like systems and processes. There was a sales strategy, but it really wasn't fine-tuned. Our 10 different sales guys are doing 10 different things.
Mm-hmm.
There was no exact structure, no consistency to things. So just adding those little layers in and making sure that, we're delivering a good workout, but we're also delivering an exceptional experience for people. It's consistent and predictable every time.
Mm-hmm.
Those were just the little pieces that were missing that we then fine-tuned. And we grew those locations. We had like 300 to 500 members in sublease, and we were just kind of busting at the seams.
Wow.
And there's pros and cons to subleases, right? It's very inexpensive because you're sharing the rent, but you're also sharing other things. You're sharing burden. Something breaks, something happens. How does those things get fixed? If you want to add something, you're kind of held back. Our class times were really unflexible because, martial arts classes were operating, from the sweet spots of like 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So we ran a 4 p.m. and an 8:30 p.m. So we really were missing a giant sweet spot of classes.
Sure.
And it was crazy looking back at it that we grew to 300-400 members with such a random class schedule.
Right.
Testament to the trainers and everybody, for being able to do that. And so we decided that we needed to open our own brick and mortar, our own standalone. So we went out and, I'd never done a lease before, never opened a facility. And so it was kind of a crapshoot at that point. We found a spot that it looked good, looked decent. And so we signed the lease on that. And then permitting happened. And from the day that we signed the lease, we actually opened up another facility before the first lease got open.
Oh,
That's
wow.
how long the permitting took on our first spot. And part of that was I just wasn't knowledgeable. I was inexperienced. I didn't quite know how the system worked. Mm-hmm. on that side of the house. And so there was a lot of lessons learned. We burned through a lot of like tenant improvement dollars. We burned through a lot of free rent that now we advise our franchisees to be able to take advantage of. We speed up the process. But long story short, we opened our second location before our first, and we opened 2 locations within like 2 months of one another. And so, not only were we now our first brick and mortar, but now we're 2 brick and mortars ultimately at the same time.
Right.
The only thing that saved us was we had a member base coming from each.
Yes.
Which was like our savior. So we didn't have to ramp up as much as one normally would opening a brick and mortar. But yeah, that was just wild times.
So I'm curious did you guys bootstrap this, or did you have outside investors? Like, how did you guys finance this whole thing?
Completely organic. Because if you look at it, we started the business in 2007 and we opened our first brick and mortar in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of years that passed, a lot of organic growth that happened. And I think the sublease part, right, it gave us time to fine tune those systems and processes and sacrifice a little bit of like fast earning revenue that,
right.
We get now when we open a location. But yeah, completely organic, completely bootstrapped. Marketing dollars were pretty much non-existent. All social media, word of mouth. Again, I told you I was like giving away free t-shirts, begging people for shirts,
David, you've listed so many reasons why this business should not have worked. Right? There's so many things. What do you think was the magic to make this thing successful? Because fundamentally, there were so many things where you said this could have went wrong.
Yeah. I give a lot of that to my business partner. He's a massive dreamer, massive visionary. Not that I'm not, right? But his like outlook is so, I hate to use the word like distorted. you know? Like his vision is so grand that no little thing is going to throw him off his path, which kind of pushes me along. I mean, I used to be someone who was a little more reserved, but being in business and being around him,
Being
I'm now
around.
more like open to taking risks and things like that. I mean, I would say, that's definitely one of the things. I think that the community and the culture that we've created, we're heavily involved in the community. Our franchisees are heavily involved in the community. We donate to military nonprofits. All of our rooms and all of our facilities are dedicated to fallen service members. Members wear a uniform, which kind of creates that teamwork and camaraderie. I mean, there's just a lot of little pieces added together that is kind of a part of the secret sauce.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.